Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. This episode is brought to you by Silver Fern Probiotic. It is so important that we have healthy gut bacteria because our serotonin, the happy neurotransmitter, originates from our gastrointestinal tract. So when there are imbalances in the gut, that can lead to brain fog, depression, mood swings, and even anxiety. Silver Fern Probiotic helps restore the growth of good microbes in your flora so you are able to fight off anxiety and depression as well as IBS, Crohn's, colitis, and candida. You can head over to silverfernbrand.com and use the code Sahara for 15% off your order. And my favorite part of Silver Fern is it's able to withstand the harsh climate of your gut, which is hot and acidic, unlike other very sensitive, only refrigerated probiotics, which are not able to withstand that temperature in there. So listen to episode 110. I interview the founder, Charity Light, and she really educates us on digestive health. And check out silverfernbrand.com with coupon code Sahara. I am so excited to finally be sharing with you my brand new cookbook, Eat, Feel Fresh, which I've been talking about for like a year, guys. So thank you for bearing with me. But this book is now in my hands and I'm about to jump out of the window of excitement right now because it was a lot of work. So in this episode, I want to share with you the book writing journey, the behind the scenes of how this book came together, why this book came together, a bit of the story behind how this journey even started, in case you don't know, and what to expect from this book. So I started off as a food blogger. I started in 2011, I think, and I created a blog called Eat, Feel Fresh, and it was my place where I would share my recipes and, eventually my nutrition tips, and eventually got into some positive psychology, and I got really into raw veganism, so I shared a lot of that, and it was just my outlet. It was never something I imagined doing as a career. In fact, I wanted to become an international human rights lawyer. That's what I was going to school for. So this was just something that I did for fun. So Eat, Feel Fresh started to grow. It started to get more and more readers the more active I was. And I started to put in a lot of time into learning about blogging and web design and SEO and commenting on other people's blogs and really just building that up. And before I knew it, I would be in class not paying attention so I could learn about blogs and marketing and all of the things related to my Eat, Feel Fresh website. And eventually, when I graduated from college, I took a job at an ad agency and I absolutely hated it. Hated working for someone else, being in a cubicle, and really having no purpose behind what I did. But my blog was not making any money. It was just costing me money because I would make all these recipes and spend a lot of time taking pictures of them, but it wasn't going anywhere. But I knew this was my only chance to give it a full shot. So I started blogging more regularly, and my blog shifted from a raw vegan blog to more of a healing blog because I was experiencing my own health issues, which I dive into in this book. So don't want to get too into that journey. And you guys may have heard it on episode 2 of how I became my highest self and wrote Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. But long story short, I was going through a lot of health problems. And though I was a health blogger teaching other people how to be healthy, I had my own issues. Can any of you guys relate to being the one helping everyone else with their health problems, their diet, their spirituality, but having your own issues that you feel a little bit embarrassed about? So I think that that's actually what's holding a lot of us back from having a career in the health, wellness, and spiritual space, because we feel like we have to be perfect before we're able to help others. And I'm here to share with you that that's not true, because in fact, your health journey is what makes you unique. And it's what makes you relatable. And you're not going to study something in depth unless you desperately need it to heal yourself. So why I know so much about Ayurveda is not because I thought it was cool or trendy or, a cool word, but because I was desperate to heal myself when my body was shutting down. And I was eating all the right foods, salads, smoothies, kale chips. I mean, I was really one of those people who'd go out of their way to make sure everything was organic and clean, etc. But my body was not responding correctly. It started off with my digestion. Every time I ate, I would feel such bad stomach aches. I mean, I'm talking stomach aches that I would be curling on the couch after a meal, just in so much pain, trying to breathe through it and have no idea what the cause was. How many of you guys can relate to that? So I would try to be stricter on my diet, try to eliminate more things. I would try different elimination diets. I would keep a food journal. Eventually, none of that worked either. So I went to different doctors. I went to gastroenterologists, and my hormones weren't working either. I wasn't getting my period. I had gotten off birth control. My period hadn't come back. 1 year, 2 years, no period. So I went to an endocrinologist, a hormone doctor, and she said, just get back on birth control. It'll give you a period. And I said, well, if I'm not getting my period, doesn't that mean I'm not fertile? She's like, oh, honey, you can get IVF when we get to that point. So I intuitively knew that something was deeply wrong with me. I'm not able to digest food. I'm not getting my period. I'm 21 years old and I'm already infertile. And on top of that, I had all these other issues that I had never dealt with before. So for example, every time I would exercise, dance, I would end up injuring something. My hip, my wrist, my shoulder, my lower back, my ankles. Everything was always cracking, always getting injured. I would get very lightheaded. I remember I would be at the gym doing cardio, just a light cardio on the elliptical, and get so dizzy that I would just lie down until I was able to hold myself back together. Have any of you guys experienced that before? And I had really low blood sugar. And even though I would eat all these fruits and healthy foods, suddenly I would just get so cold and be shivering, and no amount of sweaters or socks or blankets could warm me up. This was like a level of to the bones cold that I just couldn't sleep. And I would stay up all night. And not only because I was cold, but because I would have all these thoughts and, oh my God, what am I going to do after college? I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even want to work in international human rights. I don't want to work in a corporate office, but I don't have another job. How am I going to make money? How is this going to happen? Oh my God, I'm a loser. I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. How many of you guys can relate to that? But someone asked me about my mind. Oh no, my mind is great. I mean, I blog about positive psychology. I really know what I'm talking about. Because I didn't think that was anxiety. I thought that was just normal. I thought people just had a lot of thoughts, you know? How do you know what's normal and not when you've only lived in your own mind? And my dreams, they would be like me getting chased by pirates, someone breaking into my house and I have to run away, me always being chased, always fleeing away from something. And again, I thought this is just like what my dreams are. I didn't really look into them. So all of these issues were happening: mind, body, spirit, bones, blood. But I didn't think they were connected. No doctor had ever told me they were connected. I mean, a doctor, a gastroenterologist does not ask what kind of dreams you have. And an endocrinologist does not ask you how you sleep. And a therapist doesn't ask you how your digestion is. And these are all different people in the Western world. So I never put together the pieces. I thought that these are just my problems that I have to deal with. So I was in India, not to study Ayurveda, but because I was teaching health and sanitation in the slums of Delhi, still a raw vegan. And I had tried everything. I had gotten super, super sick. And I decided I'm just going to try going to an Ayurvedic doctor. I had heard about Ayurveda through Institute for Integrative Nutrition, IIN. I was doing a health coaching program then, which I totally recommend if anyone's interested. I can get you a $1,500 off discount. Side note, email me, sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. So IIN really taught me what Ayurveda was for the first time. And I thought it was cool. Like it was this health system that you take a quiz. It has to do with your personality. And I've always loved personality quizzes. So I thought Ayurveda was interesting, but I never really thought it was actually going to heal me or anyone. I actually thought it was sort of like some weird astrological thing. But I figured, I'm in India and this is going to be an interesting cultural experience for me. So I went to an Ayurvedic doctor that I just found online, and she was a jubilant woman wearing a red sari. And I remember looking at the walls of this office, and there were posters of chakras and four-armed deities holding, all these different lotuses and a gong and these different things with his arms. And I mean, it was a far cry from the super sanitary doctor's offices in Boston, where I had spent most of the year trying to figure out what was wrong with me. But at this point, I was willing to try everything. So she told me that the moment she saw me, that I have a lot of vata, and she instantly said, Beta, which means daughter. She's like, you're too pretty to never have baby. And she knew, without me telling her anything, that my body had shut off its hormones. And at that point, my body had gone into perimenopause, which is when your body basically goes into menopause when it's not supposed to. I was 21. Shouldn't have been going to menopause for like 50 years from then. So I'm looking at her like, how does she know that? I didn't even write that down, because my intention to go to her was just to heal from my digestion. I never even thought about bringing that up, because I thought that my period was just gone because of the pill and it was just going to come back eventually. But I didn't think it was related to this kind of stuff. So she looks at me and she takes my pulse and she looks at my tongue, which we learned all about in episode 104, Ayurvedic tongue reading. So I highly recommend, after this episode, go look at your tongue and listen to that episode too. And she's like, oh, well, a lot of vata I see. You must have trouble sleeping, staying up at night thinking. You think too much. I'm like, okay, maybe she noticed the bags under my eyes. And she's like, your joints always cracking, crack, crack, crack. Oh, you're too young to have back pain too. I'm like, can she see that my posture's off? I'm like trying to sit up straighter. And she takes my pulse and she says, oh, very, very low Agni, which I later learned means digestive fire. And she tells me, oh, Agni, very, very low, not digesting food properly, yaar. Which yaar is like, hey, guy. My Indian accent cracks me up. And she says, oh, well, body not taking in nutrients, though you are eating, body malnourished. And I was thinking, malnourished? No. I eat so much. I'm like that person that eats all day. I'm always snacking, my big smoothies, my big salads, this, that. So I'm definitely not malnourished. I mean, I had brought a suitcase of like raw vegan snacks to India. And she says, Agni so low, body shutting down, no more period, very, very bad. You are too young for this. And yeah, it was true. I was too young for this to be happening. And at first I didn't pay attention to my period's absence. I mean, what girl wants her period? But 2 years without it is a really long time. And it was obviously a sign that something was massively off. So I found out that I had something called a vata imbalance, an air imbalance, which means you have excess air in your body. So you have cold body temperature, dry skin, bloating, gas, constipation, no period, weak muscles, cracking, and easily broken joints, insomnia, anxiety, worrying too much, trouble sleeping. And I find out that if I don't put an end to this vata imbalance, it will later cycle into osteoporosis and Alzheimer's. So I just found out that my super healthy, clean diet was actually going to give me Alzheimer's and osteoporosis. And I'm training to become a health coach, and I'm a food blogger, and my whole life is dedicated to health. And all I talk about is eating kale. So how can this be happening? So I tell her, no, there has to be a misunderstanding. You see, I eat a lot of really healthy food. I eat big leafy green salads and green smoothies with spirulina and acai bowls and flax crackers and nut cheese. And I list like everything that I eat in the US. She's like, oh, acha, well, that's why you have so much vata. No more cold, raw, dry foods, only cooked foods, moong dal, white basmati rice, and lots of ghee. I'm like, yeah, you see, I'm a raw vegan, so we don't really eat any of those foods, but maybe I can just take some supplements instead. Has anyone ever thought that before? She's like, no, beta, this is Ayurveda way. By the way, in India, they say V is like W, so they say Ayurveda. It's funny. So I kind of leave the office like, well, this isn't going to work out. And I have this list of do's and don'ts in my hands. And all of my favorite foods are the don'ts. And all of the heavy foods I stopped eating years ago to lose weight, because I was actually overweight as a child and became a raw vegan to lose weight, were the foods that I should eat. So I thought if I ever followed an Ayurvedic diet, I would probably gain 50 pounds and, go back to the 12-year-old me that went into all of this in the first place. So I kind of stopped thinking about Ayurveda. And I went on to try every diet under the sun. I tried the powers of Google to heal myself. Have any of you guys ever tried to heal yourselves with Google before? Yeah. It's a little bit of a confusing and contradicting doctor that, you could search for anything. I could search why coffee is good for me, why coffee is bad for me, why chocolate's good for me, why chocolate's bad for me. Eat beans, don't eat beans, eat meat, don't eat meat. And they all have scientific evidence behind them. They all have some smiling, thriving person who's sharing this diet, and all of it is contradicting each other. So that year was just a blur of these dietary experiments. I went paleo, I went keto, I went macrobiotic, I did the low FODMAP diet, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, wheat-free, everything in between. I had flings with the Candida diet, the SIBO diet, the GAPS diet, and every other acronym you can imagine. I went to every doctor, I did every blood test, and somehow managed not to faint. Yet I still couldn't find out an answer to my issues. Have you ever tried every test and gone to every doctor and tried every diet and still not found an answer for it? Yeah, a lot of us have. So I did find out that she was right that my hormones weren't working. In fact, my estrogen and testosterone levels were both at 0. So I just didn't have any hormones in my body, essentially, but still no reason why. So the gastroenterologist says I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And the endocrinologist said I had hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is basically you're not getting your period and we have no idea why, and it's something that's in your brain. But not that your brain has something wrong with it, but that your brain thinks you're not healthy or safe enough to reproduce. So it shuts off its period. So ladies, if you're not getting your period, it's been more than 3 months, there's no reason why. Look up hypothalamic amenorrhea. But again, they told me it wasn't really that big of a deal. And, IBS medication, birth control, antidepressants they even gave me for my digestion. Can you imagine? They wanted to give me antidepressants because of my digestive issues, as if that would solve it. But I didn't want that quick fix. And I kept searching, and not finding. So eventually I circled back to Ayurveda, really just out of desperation, and realizing, I totally fit this category. I am a Vata textbook level. Everything it says Vata imbalance, I got going on. But the suggestions, I just can't do them. It doesn't make sense to me. Why does one only have to eat heavily cooked Indian food to be healthy? There are places around the world with blue zones, countries with the longest life expectancies in Costa Rica, the Okinawa, Japan, in Europe, all over the world, and they're not eating only Indian food. So how can I heal this Vata imbalance without only eating mung beans, white rice, and ghee? And I tried it. I tried eating it, and I would always just feel heavy and just nauseous. I even signed up for a panchakarma at the world's oldest panchakarma center in South India, and I just couldn't eat because in the morning they would give me a cup of ghee, which is clarified butter with all these herbs to drink. And I would drink it and feel so nauseous for the rest of the day that I couldn't eat food. So I'm like, this just feels like torture to me. But everything that Ayurveda is saying, this connection between the mind and body, it makes sense. There has to be a way that I can follow these suggestions, but not only eat Indian food that was available 5,000 years ago. So I decided that I would start learning about Ayurveda. So I started off by signing up for an Ayurvedic nutrition and cooking school program. And from there, I started to just study one-on-one with the doctors there. And I would ask them so many questions. Oh my God, I was like probably the most annoying person they've ever met. But I wanted to know the reasoning behind everything. Why is that suggested? Well, in sports nutrition, because I had also studied sports nutrition and become a certified sports nutritionist too. So a lot of the things were contradicting, and I just wanted to understand the reasoning why. But also a lot of the things were lining up. Ayurveda says the mind-body connection. We see serotonin is 70% stored in the gut. We can see that there are differences between individuals. And, when I read about the doshas, I'm seeing this is exactly, Pitta, it's so my dad. Kapha, it's so my cousin. Vata, it's so me. So I'm seeing these are real archetypes. These things are connected. This makes sense. But how can we bring the science to show that? So I became obsessed with researching Ayurveda and researching modern nutritional science and bringing them together. And I started to experiment in the kitchen, the place that I know best. And I would make my own plant-based and gluten-free and more alkalizing versions of Ayurvedic recipes. So I'd use that Vata imaginative energy to get creative in the kitchen. So instead of a wheat bread, I would make a bread with vitamin-rich almond flour. Instead of rice, I would use quinoa or cauliflower rice. Instead of a ghee, because I wanted to keep it totally plant-based, I would use a plant-based sesame oil, coconut oil, avocado oil. Instead of cane sugar, which is in a lot of Indian Ayurvedic food and in a lot of their herbs as well. Like if you get amla, for example, which is a dried fruit that's normally very bitter and it's good for losing weight. Well, if you buy Ayurvedic amla, like the supplements, it's covered in cane sugar or jaggery. Jaggery is raw cane sugar. Instead of dairy products, I really wanted to keep it plant-based. And I dove into why are dairy products so used in Ayurvedic cuisine. I mean, they use ghee for everything, and there's a lot of milk. They recommend drinking a warm glass of milk at night. And there's a lot of heavy cream in a lot of Indian foods, and dairy is just a very big part of Indian culture. But the dairy that we have today is very different from the dairy that they had in ancient India 5,000 years ago, let alone even 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. So back in ancient India, cows were revered. They were treated as gods. Lord Shiva was a cow herder. So the cows were seen as an extension of him and divine. And these cows were treated just as beautifully and with respect like humans, and they were given great food, and they had grassy pastures to eat from, and everything was very clean. There wasn't plastic and trash on the grounds. So the milk from these cows was holy because it was very, very pure. And in northern India, which is where Ayurveda actually comes from, a lot of people think it comes from South India. It actually traveled down south to South India when the British rule seized India because the British made Ayurveda illegal. So Ayurveda traveled underground to South India, specifically to Kerala, because that's where it could remain safe. But it did originate in northern India in the Indus River Valley, which I talk about in chapter 1 of Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, if you're interested in that. So back in ancient India, in northern India, they did not have avocados. They didn't really have coconut oil. There is coconut oil in South India, not in North India. They were using ghee as their way of cooking, as for everything, because it was easily available. There were cows everywhere. Cows were revered. They were seen as holy, and everything that came out of them, like their milk, was holy too. So of course you're going to use their ghee, their cheese, their curd, their everything. But today, the dairy industry is very, very different in the US and in India. And cows are pumped up with hormones, and they're put in the most inhumane conditions. I mean, if you see what dairy farms look like, you would not want to drink anything that comes out of these cows. I mean, they're seriously abused. They live in unsanitary conditions, and they're pumped with antibiotics so they don't get sick, because that's how unsanitary these conditions are. And we are what we eat, and we are what is injected into us, as are cows. So if these cows are fed corn and, chemical-filled grass, then we are actually ingesting that. So we are ingesting all of this GMO corn that these cows are fed. And in India, a lot of the cows are herding on the streets because it is illegal to kill cows. But what ends up happening is they use them to take dairy from them, and then they release them on the streets to die. So you see cows all over India, but no one's feeding them. No one's taking care of them. They just eat the trash off the floor, which is filled with plastic and waste and toxins and human waste as well. And these cows are malnourished and very, very sick. So why would we ingest the milk coming from sick, hormone-filled, antibiotic-filled, mistreated cows? Ayurveda says we take the energy of all that we eat. So these cows are filled with sadness, with fear, with anger. This is the same reason why Ayurveda says we should not eat cows. Because if we are eating a cow that was killed, this cow felt fear and anger at the moment of its death, and we take on those qualities. Just like we can see now that the adrenaline that moves through a cow's body at the moment of its slaughter ends up in its bloodstream, in its meat, and we actually ingest this adrenaline. And on top of that, we are constantly breathing in our own sweat. And our sweat is comprised of the food particles that we eat. So we are actually then breathing in this adrenaline that we have ingested through the cow, through our sweat pores. And then that continues and perpetuates the cycle. So this is why Ayurveda says, do not eat a cow. But we now have the same issue with its milk, because these cows are not treated correctly. So yes, if you live in a place where cows are treated great, you have your own neighborhood cow, you sing to it and it's really happy, eats great food, you're milking it itself or your neighbor is, go for it. And if it's raw dairy, not pasteurized, guys, the moment any sort of milk product is pasteurized, it is no longer digestible by the human body. So if you're not eating raw organic dairy that is locally and ethically sourced, you should not be having dairy. And I'd rather just not have dairy, because with raw dairy, there are risks, and it's illegal in many states, by the way, because of potential foodborne related illness, etc. But you could if you live in a Wisconsin place that has a lot of that. So why don't we just not have dairy, guys? That's a really easy solution. There's so many plant-based oils out there: sesame oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, mustard seed oil. And I'm not talking about vegetable oil. You don't want to have canola oil, vegetable oil. These are very hydrogenated, omega-6 rich. We don't want omega-6, we want omega-3. Omega-6 rich oils that are actually not really comprised of vegetables. Canola oil is something called rapeseed oil, not to be confused with grapeseed oil. Rapeseed oil, which is actually completely chemically derived. It's also heated at very, very high levels, and it is a potential carcinogen. So we don't want to be having canola oil and vegetable oil. We want to be having real plant oils. So that's an easy solution for ghee. We have so many great solutions to cheeses. There are nut cheeses you can make. I have a few in the book, like a goat cheese and a feta cheese, that don't require any fermentation. You don't need to buy a probiotic and do that whole thing. I went to raw vegan culinary school. I know how to ferment truffle cheeses out of nuts if I want, but it takes time. But these recipes are something you can just blend and takes 2 seconds. And instead of milk, we have flax milk, almond milk, coconut milk, rice milk. You can make your own. You can make your own almond milk. You can make your own coconut milk with just blending coconut shreds with water, cashew milk, whatever it is that you like, you can make a milk out of it. So let's just take dairy out of the equation. We don't have to worry about it. So I created this book as the book I wish I had. It is plant-based. It is modern. It is alkaline. So when I say alkaline, 5,000 years ago or even 100 years ago, people weren't exposed to as much pollution as we are today. People didn't sit down all day. They didn't live in big cities. They didn't drive cars everywhere. They weren't pumped up with vaccines the moment they were born. They didn't have all of these health problems that we are facing today because of the GMOs and the low trace minerals and the soil and all the other issues that we are fortunate enough to have today. We also have great things going on today too. So we need to focus on more alkalizing foods, whereas in ancient India, or even still today, if you live in a village in India and you're working on a farm all day long, yes, just having some rice and some ghee to like put some calories on you would be a great idea, because you're probably malnourished and it's probably a struggle for you to even keep some weight on. But if you're sitting at a desk all day and your only exercise is the 30-minute Pilates class you go to or the Saturday yoga class, you don't need to load up on the rice and the ghee. Yearning for calories here. In fact, you probably are trying to decrease the amount of calories that you're eating. This book doesn't count calories, but the heaviness of the food. So we want more light foods. We want more foods that are going to stimulate us, because we live such seated lifestyles and we are so overly exposed to toxins and pollutants. So we need to take an extra effort to include more alkalizing foods. So alkalizing foods are foods like lots of vegetables and fruits, really. That's what alkalizing foods are, things that can counterbalance our acidic pH. They say 80 to 90% of Americans have acidic pH levels. So we want to eat foods that can help decrease the acidity, because scientists have found that cancer can only thrive in an acidic environment, and the body handles excess acidity by producing fat cells. So if you're eating a lot of acidic forming foods, meats, wheat, dairy, processed foods, sugar, etc., not only does it increase your risks of cancer, but it actually will cause your body to produce fat cells regardless of how many calories you're eating. So this is about the quality of the foods, guys, not about the calories. It's about the qualities. So alkalizing foods are light for the body. They're detoxifying. They will help you release all of the garvisha, pollutants that is stuck in our dhatus, our tissues, causing ama toxins. So we talk about these Ayurvedic terms, but we see what is going on with this population today, because our population today is very different from the Indian population today, is very different from the Indian population 5,000 years ago. It's different from the American population 5,000 years ago. Our population is unique to right now, and it's ever changing. I mean, even from right now to the 70s, we can see differences in people's health. So we need to upgrade it, and we need to update it, and we need to make it work for today's people while still being based off of the ancient, age-old, tried and true guidelines. And that's how I created this book. It creates the best of both worlds, and it truly is part of my dharma to bring this wisdom out to you guys. And I'm so fortunate again to have Dr. Deepak Chopra write the foreword of this book, a very, very kind foreword. And I have quotes all around the book from other inspirations of mine, Dr. Suhas Kshirsagar, who's been on this podcast, Dr. Dwi Lard, who's been on this podcast. We've got Dr. Vasant Law, Dr. Frawley. And I hope that really, when you read this book, it is like relearning a language that your soul once spoke for thousands of lifetimes, because that's what Ayurveda feels like for me. And the holistic view of Ayurveda is more vital now than ever before, because so many of us have grown sick and tired of jumping from diet to diet, looking for the answer to our health when it already exists inside of us. So all it takes is tuning in and listening. I invite you to pre-order your copy of Eat Feel Fresh. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Target, Walmart, wherever books are sold. And as a special gift for pre-ordering the book, I am going to mail you, the first 1,000 buyers, a signed bookplate that I am going to personally sign and mail out to you with an inspirational card, as well as email you 10 bonus recipes that are not in this book, but are still comprised of my alkaline Ayurveda approach. I'm also going to have other offers available for people who pre-order 3 copies of the book, 5 copies of the book, etc. You'll be able to see them over on eatfeelfresh.com. And I'm going to be on a book tour in Los Angeles, in New York, in Miami, DC, San Francisco. And if you have other cities that you think you'd have a great community that would want to come out, hit me up, email me, Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com, and I'd love to come share the book with you. And most importantly, I want this book to be an entryway for your spiritual journey. Because it's not about having a 6-pack. It's not about having glowing skin. It's not about any of these physical things. It's something so much deeper than that. Because when you change the foods you eat, you change the very fabric of your being. And when you start to eat differently, you start to think differently. You start to feel differently. You start to treat people differently. And the very framework of your life expands and evolves. And suddenly you become this more energetic, vibrant, and radiant version of yourself, which is really the you that you truly have been all along. So for me, health is not the end goal. The point of this book is not so you can get a gold star that says, oh my God, you ate all organic today, gold star for you. No. Health is not the end goal, but rather it is the means to the end. It is the oil that you put into your car. You know, if you put poor quality oil in your car, well, guess what? Your car is going to go, and it's going to stop in the middle of the highway. You're going to wish you treated your car better. When you put high quality oil in your car, then you don't have to think about the oil anymore. You can just drive your car. If you've ever been sick before, you know that the only thing that you can think about is what? Getting better. And suddenly those dreams and everything that you want become stored on the shelf. And all you can think about is, how am I going to heal myself? How am I going to get back to where I was before? I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. And I know that you know someone who has been there. So I want this book to allow you to make food so you don't have to worry about food anymore. So you don't have to focus on how many calories this has. Am I going to get fat? Am I going to be this? Am I going to be that? So food can be an enjoyable part of your day that brings your community and your family or yourself back to yourself. But so between those meals, you can go out there and aspire to become your highest self. I created this cookbook so you can live your best life, not just in the kitchen, but on the real stage. So let this be an entry point to your journey, mind, body, and spirit. You know that you are worth the time. You know that you feel so much better when you just pay a little bit more attention to the foods that you're putting into your body. And you are worth every ounce of that. This book is for your friend who's trying to be healthy, your mom that's trying to make changes to your diet, your boyfriend who's trying to get in the kitchen more, your yoga teacher that you want to show appreciation for, your grandma that wants to learn what people are cooking these days. It is a beautiful gift for this upcoming holiday season. So if you want to buy this as a gift, I please would love for you to pre-order it, because pre-ordering the book allows the book to actually end up in more bookstores, because these bookstores place the orders and the amount of books that will be printed based off of the number of pre-orders it gets. So that's why you'll hear authors say, please pre-order my book, please pre-order my book. Well, I'm telling you why they all say that. Because when you pre-order the books, that's when they know, okay, this is how many pre-orders we're getting, so we can expect X number of regular orders are going to keep coming in, so let's print out this many. Have you ever been to a bookstore and you wanted to order a book and they said, oh, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks? That's because that book hadn't been pre-ordered to the level of orders that actually ended up happening, so they didn't print enough to meet the demand. And I don't want you or your friend or anyone out there to go to a bookstore and want to buy this book and have it not be available because not enough people pre-ordered it. And then this wisdom won't be able to reach and help change people's lives the way that it has mine. And people will, not be able to have this ancient Ayurvedic wisdom accessible to them. So if you ever plan to order the book, please, please, please order it before October 2nd. It is doing a huge, huge, huge gift of gratitude to me. But more importantly, it is sharing Ayurveda far and wide. It is telling not only bookstores, but it's telling the world that it is time for this ancient healing system to become part of our lives. We see yoga studios on every single corner, but how many people in those yoga studios are living truly yogic lives? We need to take the yoga off the mat and into the world and into our kitchens. And Ayurveda is the science of life. In fact, that's what the term means, Ayurveda, the science of life. So allow this ancient science transform all areas of your life, from the foods you eat to the self-care practices that you do to your meditations. And I have all of this in the book. It's not just recipe guides. I talk about my approach to Ayurveda, how your dosha is related to your dharma, the 11 tenets of health according to Eat, Feel, Fresh, about the koshas, the layers outside of your body. I talk about the vibration of foods and habits that increase and decrease your vibrations. I talk about food intolerances and allergies and why that's on the rise. I talk about the energetics of food, prana, tejas, ojas, what these foods mean, how to eat foods that are high in these different types of energies, and how to know if your prana, your vital life force, your tejas, spark of radiance, or your ojas, luster of life, are balanced or out of balance. We, of course, dive deep into vata, pitta, kapha, the 3 doshas, the 3 energy types, but I crafted this book to not be those Ayurvedic cookbooks where only 1/3 of the recipes apply to you. I saw every Ayurvedic cookbook. This is only for vata. This is only for pitta. This is only for kapha. Well, what if I'm all 3? We're all 3. So I crafted these recipes for the breakfasts. They are catered specifically to the dosha. You're going to eat for your dosha that's out of balance, not your prakriti, the dosha constitution you were necessarily born with, but the one that you are the most out of balance with today. That is how you eat Ayurvedically, guys. So if you're bloated, gassy, constipated, cold, dry, you want to have the vata balancing breakfast. If you are acidic, hot, sweating a lot, heartburn, you want to eat the pitta balancing breakfast. If you are heavy, gaining weight, sluggish, tired, mucus, asthma, hypothyroid, you want to eat the kapha balancing breakfast. Now the lunches are focused on the 6 tastes of Ayurveda. And these are the 6 tastes that we all need regardless of our dosha constitution. And this is a very, very big part of Ayurveda that other Ayurvedic practitioners just don't talk about. But the 6 tastes are really the tenets of Ayurveda. And if you're eating for all 6 tastes, then your doshas will remain in balance. So the lunches are all 6 taste bowls, as I call them, like Buddha bowls, but comprised of the 6 tastes. I share with you how to make your own 6 taste bowls, the mechanisms behind that, and different recipes from around the world, Argentinian, Japanese, Italian, Greek, Lebanese, incorporating the 6 tastes of Ayurveda. And I also have substitutes for the doshas. For example, for if you have a pitta imbalance, you shouldn't be doing lots of onions and garlic or chilies or red peppers. So I have substitutes throughout, and it's really cute. You'll see little graphics like, hey, pittas, like switch out this onion for a fennel bulb. And it's very just engaging and fun. And this is the kind of book you just want on your coffee table, and we'll just peer through, and it just transports you to India. And the dinners are all tridoshic, mostly one pot bowls. Because for me, when I was making this book, I'm like, okay, should I do all my, super sophisticated recipes from culinary school that are beautifully plated and have all these steps? Or should I make it really easy and the foods that I actually cook all the time, because I don't have time on a weeknight to make an intricate recipe. I just want to put some food on the table so I can get back to my emails and live my life. So I wanted to make it real. It's not about impressing anyone. This is about foods that you're actually going to eat, guys. If you've never cooked before, this is a great cookbook for you. So lots of one pot meals and just super simple things. I look at tacos and chili and all these foods you're familiar with, pizzas, from an Ayurvedic perspective. How can we make a pizza with sweet potato crust? How can we make cauliflower, cassava tacos and add some turmeric and cumin in there to make it easier to digest? So I look at all these super easy, super modern recipes. You've probably made them before, but changing them with an Ayurvedic focus. We talk about the gunas, the qualities of foods, how to balance them out, heavy versus light, hot versus cold, smooth versus rough, stable versus mobile, etc. I go into all of this. So if you are a foodie, a nutrition person, spiritual person, or you're none of them, but you kind of want to learn more about them, maybe it's an area in your life that you want to dive deeper into, this book is for you. So I am so honored and so excited to share this with you. I also talk about dual doshas in this book because I feel like no Ayurveda book talks about dual doshas. So vata pitta, pitta vata, pitta kapha, kapha pitta, vata kapha, kapha vata. I break all of that down. What do they look like? How do they react under stress? How do they tolerate heat? What is their energy like? What is their digestion like? What is their build like? How do they gain weight? What are their personalities like? I dive into all of that, guys. So it's so much more than just a cookbook, but it's my entire approach to Ayurveda. So again, pre-order the book over on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Target, Walmart, wherever you buy your books, and save the screenshot, and it'll be in your email, and submit it over to me on eatfeelfresh.com, and you will receive your pre-order bonuses. So honored, so excited to have you on this journey, and I'll see you guys on my book tour. Namaste.